Hello everyone, welcome to the final exam preview video. This is, like with exam 2, a video where I'll be scrolling through the latest draft of the final exam and letting you know some key things that are on it that you might want to study carefully. Again, as I said for exam 2, I'm looking at a draft of the final exam number 1 and number 2. This is in no way intended to be a comprehensive study guide and does not imply that if you take in consideration only the things that I'm saying in this video that you will be prepared for the exam. Okay, with that caveat, let's get started. So in chapter 14, you should definitely know how to compute pre-tax cost of capital and post-tax cost of capital. And you should know how to work with the CAPM equation, the CAPM model, for computing equity cost of capital. And you should know a few things about RE, what makes it sometimes accurate, what makes it sometimes inaccurate. Okay, jumping around a bit, let's talk a little bit about chapter 17. You definitely should know how to do pro forma projections of an entity for 1 year, where one way or another you either know everything or can estimate everything, but one balance sheet quantity, like, for example, estimated amount of debt, estimated amount of cash, and how to go through and solve for that one last thing. And the procedure, as I've said before, is to start with your PPE roll forward, move on to your income statement, and then move on to your equity roll forward, then put everything you can on the balance sheet, compute everything else you can with the rules that we know, and you'll be left with one thing on the balance sheet that you don't know, and you want to solve for that using assets equal liabilities plus equity, something like that. And I've tried to set up chapter 17 set of problems so that there's minimal propagation error. I've tried to do that through the whole exam. And then moving on to chapter 15, remember we have 4 situations: value to shareholders with our perpetuity model, value to all stakeholders with our perpetuity model, and value to shareholders with our buy, manage, sell model, and value to all stakeholders with our buy, manage, sell model. So you should feel comfortable doing any one of those 4 types of problems. Very similar to what we did in the video lectures, in the homeworks, in the practice problems, etc., with the caveat that I've tried to be careful on the exam not to allow for too much propagation error. There is a little propagation error here or there because that's inevitable if you want to have realistic problems. And this is FIN 301 3-level course, so of course we want to have somewhat realistic problems for you to do. Let's move on to chapter 16. In chapter 16, we were focused on getting the weighted average cost of capital and also determining, once we've got that weighted average cost of capital, determining what's the optimum cost of capital for an entity given various levels of leverage. So we did things like we had a table for an entity with no leverage, 20% leverage, 40% leverage, 60% leverage, 80% leverage. Then for each of those leverage levels, we would calculate the weighted average cost of capital, and then the optimum cost of capital for all stakeholders, for shareholders and lenders, was always the minimum weighted average cost of capital among all those computed. And the reason for that is that it maximizes the present value of our beautiful free cash flows to everyone. That's about it. If you can do all of those things, you should be in great shape on the final exam. So thanks for stopping by, and if I don't see you in office hours or speak to you in the discussion forums, the TAs and I wish you all the best on the final exam. Take care.